Well, here we are, getting ready to go to a McElvain reunion. Did you ever wonder how we got here? Or how we got the name McElvain? Sounds like it would be from a father or ancestor, but McElvain is actually classified as being a place in which to live. I've been called McElvain before, and some scholars believe we are from Calvin, which is located in the Highlands of Scotland. Our ancestors tell us we are from a place called Ayrshire, which is located in the Scottish uplands near the town of Mabel in the land of Grimmet. Mabel is located about 44 miles southwest of Glasgow and 5 miles east of the Firth of Clyde. Research for our name is still needed, but I personally find Donald E. McElvain Jr.'s research called The McElvains, a Delaware branch, quite interesting. He goes back to the 12th century, Scotland. I found so many different spellings of the name, and they all sound the same. But even Donald had repeated first names that seemed confusing. I was sure glad to see Cyrus come along. The true magic of our family ties comes from an unexpected source, as we will see in our journey through our McElvain history. Looking at that history, I still wondered, where do I start? Why not start with literally the greatest generation? Members of the greatest generation were born from 1901 to 1927. Those years coincide with the children of Fred and Grace McElvain. They include Hildred, Russell, Leah, Raymond, Dorothy, Laura, Margaret, Daniel, Melville, Bonnie, Helen, and Mary Lou. Many of the greatest generations came and went from a little house near the Missouri homestead. I know my father was born in the house of Grace's grandfather, Daniel Lamb, which was built in the late 1800s on the north side of Denver, Missouri. He told the story of his birth in the bathtub. That home has had many family reunions and gatherings and was supposedly built with McElvain brick. But this would be just one of the many destinations we would call home. The journey to this home was started in the aftermath of the Mexican-American War, acquisitions of territories in the West, along with a time of great sectional strife right after the gold rush in California by Andrew Jackson McElvain, who saw opportunity with the United States land sales in Missouri as part of the Compromise of 1850. Rumor has it that he even participated in the California Gold Rush. By 1854, at the age of 38, he moved from Perry County, Illinois, to purchase land in northwest Missouri. Some of his land patents were signed by Franklin Pierce, the 14th President of the United States. Most of his patented land was within the 5th Prime Meridians, Township 65, Range 30. In addition to serving as one of the first county judges, he also served 2 terms in the legislature. I'm getting ahead of myself. We should go back to that little town just beyond the Firth of Clyde, Mabel, Scotland. I can only believe that we left those beautiful hills because the English drove many Scots out of Scotland during this period to work the plantations in Ireland near Ulster. We call it the Scottish extraction. After Ireland, the English provided opportunities in the New World. The New World is where we meet our blood relative, Robert McElvain, who married Mary Duffield. Mary will become a very important part of our story. Robert predates the Revolutionary War, settling in Salisbury Township, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, about 1730. His 200-acre tract was originally purchased from William Penn, who sold the land to the Scots, who he knew would fight fiercely for their land. Robert did have a couple boys who did fight for the colonists during the Revolutionary War. One was a sergeant in Captain Fenton's company, 1st Battalion in the Pennsylvania Militia. The sergeant was our Andrew McElvain, not to be confused with Andrew J. of Missouri. It is said that the English jumped at the opportunity to chase the stubborn Scots from England, only to lose the New World by cornering them in the Americas. Andrew left Pennsylvania after the war to seek lands vacated by the British Loyalists in Virginia. Andrew died near his home in Natural Bridge, Virginia, leaving his widow, Margaret, and at least 8 children. Margaret also plays a key role in our journey, but we will now focus on their young son, Robert, at just age 11 when his father passed. Robert married Keziah Wells, known as Kizzy, in Christian County, Kentucky on December 6, 1813. Before that, Lewis Wells, Kizzy's father, and 5 others, including Robert, went to check out the land and situation in Illinois. They had to return because of the hostilities. Eventually, they were able to settle in Illinois, specifically Perry County. Robert and Kizzy were among the pioneer families who moved to Illinois before 1820. They had 9 children, one named Andrew Jackson, the same Andrew we introduced earlier. All those Andrews and Roberts, I wondered how to keep them all straight. Well, the McElvain American women were some of the strongest American pioneers I can imagine. Let's start with Margaret. Margaret was Sergeant Andrew's wife, who came from Scotland, married in Pennsylvania, moved to Virginia, only to lose her husband, and caring for 8 of her own children. Then moved to Kentucky, followed by another move in 1828 to become one of the earliest settlers in Illinois, all probably less than 40 years. Let us also include a Revolutionary War along with other hostilities in a new land. She is a personification of a pioneer woman. Her children even erected a monument for her journey, which reads, Margaret Workman was born in Scotland. She and Andrew McElvain were married in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where they lived until they moved to Virginia. Andrew served in the Army in the Revolutionary War. Andrew's mother was the daughter of Reverend George Duffield, the chaplain of the Continental Congress. Margaret and Andrew had 8 children. About 1800, Andrew died and the family moved to Adair County, Kentucky. In 1828, Margaret and most of her family moved to Auburn, Illinois. Margaret passed away in 1836. The marker also marks the burial of 4 of her children. The marker mentions Andrew's mother, Mary Duffield, whose father, George Duffield, was a reverend for the Continental Congress. I hope you see that it is getting easier to tell the story of all those Roberts and Andrews along with their wives. Remember, Kizzy's maiden name was Wells. Kizzy's father, Lewis Wells, served in Brandon's South Carolina Militia Regiment with their most famous Battle of Cowpens, January 17th, 1781. According to eyewitness accountants, Brandon's soldiers were the first ones to fire on the advancing British and the only ones to have sufficient time to reload and take a second shot. Then, according to plan, made a quick retreat behind Morgan's Continentals, drawing the British into their range. The militia regiments then reformed and rejoined the fight. The defeat of the British at Cowpens finally drove Cornwallis and his army out of the Carolinas. The movie, The Patriot, with Mel Gibson, is a factionalized version of that battle. Kizzy's mother, Elizabeth, also survived hostilities. Elizabeth was kidnapped by Indians as told by the Wells family. Around 1770, the family was preparing to return to their settlement in the Carolinas, fearing an Indian attack. Her father was helping the mother mount a horse when a war whoop broke the stillness. Mother begged her husband to run. The women and children were taken prisoner. In camp that evening, some of the tribe brought in scalps, which Elizabeth knew to be that of her father's. In captivity, Elizabeth's brother drowned while crossing the Roanoke River. After a year of imprisonment, Elizabeth and her remaining family were returned to the settlement. Kizzy will forever be tied to Missouri as written in both the Missouri and Illinois papers. Sad accident. We are called upon to record the death of one of Perry County's oldest and most esteemed citizens, in the person of Mrs. McElvain, who was killed last week while riding in a hack. From the best information that we have, the deceased came to her death by the accidental upsetting of a hack while on her way to visit her son. Kizzy took leave of her children, Harvey and Sam McElvain, and Mills Willie Lip of this county, only a few weeks since, to visit her son in Missouri. She was something over 80 years of age and remarkably vigorous for one so old. She leaves a large circle of bereaved relatives and friends to mourn her unexpected loss. Kizzy was laid to rest at the Allendale Cemetery in Allendale, Missouri, while Robert is buried at the McElvain Cemetery in Perry County, Illinois, near DuQuoin. Robert is buried in the cemetery he helped establish in 1822. Let's recap our journey through America, starting with Robert, who we think was born in Scotland or Ireland, then Sergeant Andrew, who was born in Pennsylvania, the second Robert, born in Virginia, the second Andrew, born in Illinois, which leads us to Cyrus, who was born in Illinois, but spent most of his life in Missouri. Cyrus was 7 when Andrew J. moved his family in a covered wagon to Missouri. 94 years later, he would be one of the oldest people to die in Worth County, Missouri. Many more of his children and their children come and go through the area, but many more perhaps heard Horace Greeley telling them to go west. A local paper described Cyrus in a publication dated October 29, 1896, as an influential man in the Populist Party. Olive Beaver, the wife of Cyrus, also known as Audie, had 11 children, all surviving childhood. That included Fred McElvain, who married Grace Lamb and lived in the house that Daniel built in 1883, which still stands today on the north side of Denver, Missouri. Fred was also an inventor and patented a car door hinge used by the railroads of his time. I also remember the huge gardens they would tend with all the canning in the fall. Fred and Grace would raise 12 of the greatest generation, losing one at an early age. And that is how we got to the greatest generation. Thanks to the McElvain American women, we can now connect the dots with McElvain history. Rich with travel, faith, opportunity, social responsibility, hard work, perseverance, and beautiful children. I'm sure you have your own stories to share, along with insight about our family heritage for the McElvain Lamb reunion. I have dabbled on the Lamb side with possibilities of settlements in North America as early as the 1600s, but that's another story. I know by telling the stories, the more we seem connected. The more we seem connected, the more fun we have together. I'm looking forward to a fun family get-together this year.